Hi, everyone. Okay, so it's time for some thought leadership and graphics, and we have some great thought leaders from some key SVG sponsors and technology providers, because obviously these gentlemen all are well versed on the technologies and also hear from a lot of different customers as far as workflows that are going on in the industry. And there's been a lot of big changes with respect to graphics, especially during the pandemic. So gentlemen, good to see you all. We do want to do some opening statements and context. So give, for people unfamiliar with Ncam, fire it up as far as what you guys have been working on this year.
So for those of us who don't know who Ncam are, we are the smallest, lightest, most accurate and most robust tracking system on the marketplace. Currently working on major projects that everyone will be aware of, such as the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Champions League, Europa League, most recently the Super Bowl, and then firing up again next month for both Formula E and Formula One.
Excellent, great. So Kuban, from the zero density perspective, tell us a little bit about the Reality Engine and where you guys kind of fit into the marketplace.
Yes, Reality Engine is providing our users to build augmented reality or virtual studios. And yes, we are in the business of rendering and compositing the graphics in real time using latest GPU technologies and say video IO methods. And we also provide a node-based real-time compositor for them to build their own compositing pipelines, which is a big thing for augmented reality. If you ask me, it's the new school in compositing, because people always lived with fill and key signals traditionally. We changed that. We provide them a node-based compositor for complex workflows.
Excellent, great. So Laurie, from the MOOV.tv, Constellation, I guess, is your main offering, right? And there's different aspects of Constellation, so maybe a quick little overview of Constellation, what that's all about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're a graphics provider, so we provide graphic services for broadcast, and that can range from on-screen graphics in the traditional sense to augmented reality, virtual studios as well. We've also done some VR 360 work previously as well. And then what you mentioned around Constellation is our kind of in-house suite of custom applications that we've created to support various platforms. So we have our kind of premier product, Orion, which allows us to control graphics engines with data integration from third-party data providers, be that Opta or Stats Perform. I know they're sort of the same house these days, but so that's part of our big offering for many clients at the moment, including BT Sport and IMG. Our Gemini service is our kind of cloud-based rendering platform, which allows it basically cuts us out as the middleman of creating graphics content. So that allows producers to log onto a website, author their graphics themselves, and get them delivered ready for their edits without having to kind of pester a human to do it. Then Phoenix is our kind of a social media curation tool. So that allows program editors and producers to curate their social feeds in relation to their program that they're making, pick certain parts of the social streams out that they want to showcase live on air, and it gets it to air nice and quickly and efficiently. And then Aquarius is kind of like the back end part that helps Orion do what it does, which is basically our database kind of control software that allows us to kind of scrub names and do all those things that you need to do behind the scenes before you get to air. It just helps with the management of that. So there are our four big products that help our kind of operators and our clients achieve what they need to live on air.
Excellent, great. And John, from the SMT perspective, I'm here in New York, you're down the coast in, I'm guessing in North Carolina.
No, I'm in Florida. Yeah.
Florida, a little further down. So
yep. Yeah. I don't like winter.
A little bit of background on SMT and your role in the market.
Yeah, so SMT we have 3 offices in the US and an office in Munich. And we provide a really wide spectrum of services all across the sports industry. We work with governing bodies, leagues, teams, and sponsors. The types of services that we provide are for the Open Championship. We provide the scoring. We provide the scoring for the Australian Open that just ended. We do video wall and broadcast graphics at Wimbledon, Roland Garros, the Players Championship, the US Open. We provide the virtual off-sideline technology for the Portuguese Football League. And then a lot of our core technologies, like our camera tracking and our graphics engines and things like that, drive the graphics at events from CrossFit Games, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, and sort of you name it, we're around.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm going to start with you, John, because I know that obviously our first topic is going to be working in the pandemic and sort of the remote production workflows. And once upon a time, not too long ago, I think all of your technologies were very much on-site, intensive, big CPUs and processing stuff, and you had to be on-site. You really couldn't kind of move that around. But this year, I mean, SMT, a lot of remote production workflows. So for all of you, we'll kind of roll through. How are you all working differently, and what does this mean for the future of, and let's focus on the augmented reality graphics. I mean, do you think this is going to expand the potential to work with more clients because you can work remotely? So John, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I actually, COVID has caused us essentially to accelerate a lot of things we were doing already, like building a remote production facility in our offices, doing a lot of downstream remote type productions. Specifically in terms of AR, though, we delivered a show open for MLS Cup where we had people in 4 different locations, all on a Zoom call like this. We were watching a feed from the broadcast truck of the AR and camera combined output and dialing in the HDR coloring. We were timing animation and doing all of this stuff remotely. And that was an experience. The stream was delayed. So the person on site would tweak a color and then we'd wait a minute for it to update. And, then we would discuss. And, we did that on a 3-hour meeting once. So good and bad. It's allowing us to work in the pandemic for starters. It's allowing us to keep a lot of our people home and reduce the wear and tear on staff. It's absolutely helped budgets because we're not traveling. Some cons, obviously the timing is an issue. If client decisions are delayed or we decide to change some animation or change graphics, if everybody's here, that trickles down, and the on-site people, they're now struggling because we're delivering a final project late. Versus where me or someone from my team would be there and we'd be doing all the work, and then everybody would sort of be in one happy place. But I personally, I think this is where a lot of stuff is going. I think the budget impact alone is going to drive so much of that. We're able to deliver services to more clients more efficiently, and that's ultimately what drives anything in this industry.
Right, excellent. Kuban, from your perspective, how are you seeing people working differently with your systems in the pandemic?
Yes, after the pandemic, I must say that the international flights have been canceled. We were not able to access to many of our installations and clients. So the new installations and sometimes that you need to do it on site have all been made remotely this year. It's almost 100% installations made remotely. This is a success for us that we have learned during this year. And since we have seen this importance of remote installations and streaming video coming from our engines, as John mentioned, there's a delay between the stream and the control commands you are sending. To minimize that, we have built web streaming technology into our engine that we can see the video with a very low latency through a web browser. And we already released the technology in some of our preview builds of Reality Hub. So we can right now support much more easily with a lower latency, with a very high quality stream that is made through to a browser, which adapts to the bandwidth situations and the network problems it's adaptive. And that tool was really important after the pandemic. We give lots of remote support, and I heard a lot of people has got their lens calibrations made remotely. This was also a new thing for us during the pandemic. So we evolved because of these situations and made a lot of things that were done on site now on remote.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. So Phil, from the Ncam perspective, because obviously always had a big, place at the stadium with the cameras and setting up the systems and stuff. So what's been the challenge for Ncam, and what opportunities have opened up?
Well, we've been quite lucky in a way, and I think Laurie will back me up on this. There's a number of forward-thinking broadcasters, particularly in the UK, and we only have to look at BT Sport, who even before the pandemic had started to want to look at a greener footprint. So they wanted to do a lot more remotely, not send as many people out to site, even looking to the extent of going by train where you could rather than flying, to go to a carbon neutral footprint. So it's something we've been looking at for a while, but obviously the pandemic drove it quite a bit quicker. So on our development side, what we've been working on is so that we can now operate the camera bar from a remote location through a web GUI. So we don't have to have people on site. It's just about attaching it to the camera and putting it out wherever you want. And that data is then coming back from wherever you are in the world and being rendered back at base, and then broadcast out from the facility. So there'll be a number of projects that you'll see during the summer for major events where we won't send an operator out. There'll be a camera bar on the camera. The data will come back to the UK, rendered back at base, where we'll have one of our guys sitting there working on 5-6 concurrent games, and then it'll be broadcast out from there. And I think it's the future for what we're seeing, particularly in Europe. I think that will move over to the States as well, because it's, we look at North America and it's like having, a European competition over here. But it's not just lowering the footprints and making things greener. It's allowing people to do more with less and making things a little bit cheaper as well. So whereas I've always used this expression that AR was seen as the cherry on top of the icing on top of the very expensive cake, I think we're moving away from that now. It's more a case of why not use AR? And, I think we'll discuss it later on, but we're seeing people wanting to use it now for events where you wouldn't normally have seen it. So outside of the tier 1 major shows, seeing a lot more people wanting to do that, and major broadcasters as well. So I think, Laurie, we've worked on a few things together, haven't we? Particularly on this side. And we're seeing that's going, and it's been a success. I think you'd agree, wouldn't you, Laurie?
Yeah, I would, and I think what the comments you make about sustainability are ever important in today's society. In not just in broadcast, but in every walk of life. I think it's important that we address these issues that are happening. I mean, just going back to the remote working side of things, I guess there's two ways that you can look at it. You can say that there's the first way where everyone's working at home, addressing kit at a central location, and then there's kind of what Phil's alluding to in part of his answer, where he's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but you've got the studios, everyone operating at the studios potentially, and then feeds coming back from further afield. I think from both respects, though, I think remote working has very quickly become the norm, in terms of when we were first forced to work from home due to the current restrictions imposed by the government in the UK, we had to really mobilise very quickly. And luckily, because of the forward-thinking broadcasters such as BT and their technical partners such as Timeline, we were able to, in conjunction with them, roll out something within 24 hours, I think it was, before we were doing our first remote broadcast, which it didn't contain AR, and it was very, very straightforward and safe, for want of a better phrase, at that stage, because it was all the first time we were all doing it under very, very stressful circumstances. But that has just grown and grown and grown and become such a refined workflow now that it's actually a lot easier to work remotely sometimes in certain respects than being in the building. it doesn't necessarily matter if you're at the end of a KVM with a machine in a server room, or that you're accessing that machine over the internet. You're still accessing that machine, and you're still able to participate to the broadcast chain. Obviously, there are some cons with that, where we're all at the whim of home internet, so to speak, in certain respects. So there is a single point of failure there, which we are, very reliant on our internet service providers to ensure that everything is working as good as it can, and we're not fighting over half the street watching Netflix, as has happened in certain productions I've been involved in, where the producer's monitoring has gone down, let's say, because bandwidth in his small village is not as wide as it could be. But I think, with everything improving as how it has done, from a AR perspective, from an on-screen graphics perspective, I think, it has become the norm. We have operators, multiple operators contributing to the same shows, working via the same talkback systems and getting the same monitoring feeds, which have really low latency, which I think is the biggest key with working remotely, is being able to see and hear all the things that you need to see and hear in tandem with everybody else in the production, because otherwise you can't operate. We were having experiences sometimes where at the beginning the latency wasn't as good as it is now, and the director's cueing you 2 seconds after you were supposed to put the graphic in, and you're not seeing the pictures that you're associating to see. So it's come a long way in such a short period of time, and I think the benefits that it has, not only from a sustainability point of view, as Phil's mentioned, but from a human perspective as well, in terms of employee burnout and the lack of travel required now. I mean, it's always nice to go to the big events, and always key to go to some of those big events, but it has improved kind of worker kind of sanity, so to speak, with less travel and less commuting.
Sure. Excellent. Well, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and discuss the move towards the tier 2 and 3 that Phil hinted at. So we'll be back right after this quick break.